Hey all, here are OS Reviews. In the past, we have already taken a look at the Litro light field based camera that just looks like a kaleidoscope. We also took a look at the Light L16 with the crazy 16 cameras scattered onto the front. And now the DxO ONE, in my opinion, completes this trinity of just weird camera design that was happening around this time. So this one was released back in 2015 by DxO Labs. That was a spin-off of the same company that rates all of the smartphone cameras in terms of their photography capabilities, and they made their own hardware. They also made a version that was compatible with Android devices using Type-C later on, but this is the version with the Lightning connector for iOS products. DxO ONE camera series, though, was discontinued in 2018, so it suffered a similar fate as the Lite and Litro, and the premise is that you're able to take better quality images than the sensor built directly into the smartphone that you have with you, powered by a 1-inch sensor that is the same one found on the Sony DX100 series. So it's still a very high-end sensor. However, these days, as gradually, some more pro-grade photography phones from the likes of Xiaomi, Sony, Oppo are all starting to bring out 1-inch camera sensors on their smartphones, so there's less of a reason to pick up one of these unless you are using an older device, or say you're an iPhone user, in which the camera sensor here will still be much larger, and the benefit there is it can let in more light, you can capture more realistic looking bokeh using just the physics of the massive lens compared to artificial processing using software. So as a connected camera, it really is just using that port that you can then pop on and pop out here to stick onto the phone. Afterwards, this lightning connector can be then fully collapsed and tucked away into the design here to give you a more compact profile when you are on the go. Now, similar to the Lite and Litro cameras, however, the DxO ONE has received software updates after its release that has gradually added more functionality and slightly optimized the performance of the unit. For instance, during release, you had to connect this thing to the iPhone to use it as a viewfinder for taking images. However, as a software update that was added later on, DxO enabled you to use the small monochrome OLED screen to act as a viewfinder. Even though initially it was only meant to display info like settings, you can actually see a quick sample of what you're looking at if you want to capture something quickly even without connecting it to the phone. The iPhone SE that we have here is already a pretty compact phone by 2023 standards, a more average sized device like the Samsung with the 6.8-inch screen. You can tell that huge difference in size, and especially when you put it against a more conventional camera like the aforementioned Light L16, the difference is just laughable. It is built nicely, having an aluminum unibody chunk here, including the shutter key, which feels very tactile and responsive, feels precision milled, and then having some polycarbonate rougher plastic at the back that also gives it a nice texture when you're holding it. And then there's a logo here that says designed by DxO in Paris and San Francisco. Now on the very back of the unit, you had access to a lanyard strap, and underneath this little port is the charging micro USB. So USB Type-C at the time wasn't common yet, and there's also a micro SD card slot for the camera to capture and save the images and videos. And one thing that you won't get on the DxO ONE though would be a optical zoom. So it's a fixed zoom camera unless you're using digital. So the entire premise is just having a much larger, higher quality sensor always with you. But if you're trying to crop in, that's where there may be better solutions that will probably also take up more space. And B, this camera does not have a flash built into the unit itself, but rather once you connect it to the phone, it relies on the phone's flash. You can capture up to 20 megapixels on this unit, and the battery on such a small thing though is a little bit on the shorter side, although you can get upwards of around 150 to 200 images before you have to recharge it again. Unfortunately though, the battery is not hot swappable, so unlike some devices where you can just pop in another cell, it's going to be a lot more tough to replace. So in terms of some of the final specs that we see here, perhaps one of the reasons why the DxO ONE just wasn't super successful was also due to pricing. It retailed for $600 back in 2015, and most folks at that price would just prefer picking up a dedicated RX100, for instance, and use as opposed to this particular unit, although of course there are still benefits here like a ultra compact size. However, an important point to keep in mind is just like the light and litro cameras, a part of that price that you're paying is due to the software that you're getting with this camera. Initial buyers were given a free copy of the DxO PhotoLab software, which is a competitor to Photoshop that allows you to have pro-grade editing over the raw images that you take on the camera. And that's a software that typically sells for upwards of $200. If you are buying a DxO ONE these days, whether it's through eBay or Amazon, they will often sell for around $120. One of the other features that DxO did add via software update that wasn't released originally is Wi-Fi support. So you can also shoot with this camera and have the iPhone act as a viewfinder even if you're not connected using the Lightning port. The design here of the lens is actually a pretty cool marvel in engineering. Since there is such a huge sensor, they had to put the lens relatively close to that sensor in order to still fit it into a compact size and also shoot it in a variety of angles because it kind of transforms the phone into a retro style camcorder of sorts if you have it plugged in, where you're able to rotate and twist on it to get a multiple of angles, even point the camera and the screen towards your face if you're trying to use it in a selfie mode. DxO also released some accessories, including different lens filters, as well as a waterproof case that really just transforms it into an action cam-esque device, but with a much larger sensor than any GoPro, more suited though towards photography than video, even though video is okay. It has full HD at 30 FPS, as well as slow motion capture. This camera also has a mode that's called Super RAW, which is proprietary to DxO. So in addition to regular RAW, this Super RAW capability is very similar to HDR, where it's capturing a sequence of shots and then stitching them together to supposedly give you better detail. DxO Connect allow you to process super raw images, combine them into one, as well as do some light editing, although it's not quite as advanced as their PhotoLab software. So turning on the camera is also extremely simple. You basically just slide down the lens cover and it just pops onto life. Now, using the touchscreen in the detached mode, you're able to take a look at the battery percentage remaining, as well as some of the kind of contrast levels. It's very basic, and you can just half tap to focus and then capture the full image. What I will say is, oftentimes when you're shooting in the detached mode, it's a lot of fun because you are trying to see the world from a slightly different perspective, and you're also able to transition between taking images as well as recording video, as you can see there, but that's it. For more advanced controls, you would have to turn over to the companion app. And now with the phone, I'm just going to attach this onto the Lightning port, and the app has opened up by itself. It offers very good responsiveness, as you can see there, almost no lag or latency as you are moving around. Now, a couple of notes here is the connection with the Lightning port is quite strong, and it feels actually surprisingly sturdy, doesn't feel loose or anything like that at all, and you are able to, again, rotate on this hinge. For example, when pointing at an object, if you are standing upright, you can still see the screen and tilt it up towards your face. Also remains relatively comfortable when you're holding it and operating the camera, which is good. Now, one con though is that it does require you to plug the Lightning port all the way into the phone, which sometimes can be a struggle if you have a case which has a thicker lip at the bottom. So oftentimes you may have to remove the phone from a case unless you have just a really thin one or just a skin attached. You can tap here on the side to change properties, like go into a manual focus instead of autofocus to bring it closer versus further away from an object. Additional controls here are for exposure settings. You can make it brighter or dimmer. You can switch back and forth between video recording and taking images by tapping on the bottom key there. Now, under additional settings, here we can take a look at some controls similar to most point-and-shoot cameras. You're able to find timers, you can record time-lapse footage, and lighting, there is going to be some what they call slight lighting, medium, or strong, that is similar to what iPhones are doing by trying to analyze the scene and increase the dynamic range, adding a little bit more light but not overexposing your face. So some of that basic computational photography that they were playing around with. Down below here, we can also choose if you want to detach it and go with the Wi-Fi versus the direct connection modes. So I've chosen the first one, and then it's going to take a couple of seconds for the camera to now connect to the same network, similar to a home security camera. So I've detached it, and now you can see I'm pointing it at different objects, and it's still being picked up by the camera, albeit the movements are just slight moment or two behind in terms of lag, but also not too bad. Keep in mind that Wi-Fi mode will also drain power just a little bit more. I can tap on the bottom key for selecting between a couple of different scenes, whether for sports, landscape, as well as kind of a night mode. The process of capturing an image also works quite well. Just again, tap again to focus. As aforementioned, with the viewfinder, it's often easier to tap into smaller subjects and be able to have more granular control over what you're capturing versus in the detached mode. If you are super close, it doesn't necessarily have the best macro mode in the world, although you can also zoom in a little bit afterwards and do some cropping, but again, this is all digital, so you are losing a bit of detail. You can either choose to save it on the camera, upload it to your phone's memory, or send it to social media or email, over to the cloud, so on and so forth. Compared to a conventional camera, which just takes longer for you to transfer the files over, we can also slide down to take a look at any geotagging location that is using the phone's GPS. You also get a histogram view to see how the shot has been represented, what settings you were on when capturing this image, and kind of dissect it in a little bit more detail. Taking this particular image, for example, it does a beautiful job of having the flowers in focus, but everything here in the background just fades away in a very dramatic way, but it doesn't look fake at all, since it is literally the large sensor and the optics at play, something that software using multiple cameras and depth sensing is trying to imitate beautiful looking shots that would be otherwise impossible to do on just a smartphone sensor, having that DSLR-like large lens effect. So the DxO Connect software is pretty intuitive. Once you plug in the camera and load it up, it will instantly show all the images that you have on the camera and the memory here, so we can then click on them to take a look at whether their format is RAW or super RAW. The latter really requires you to process it via this DxO Connect software. So just like on the Litro as well as the Lite L16, again, to edit any photo, you have to first save it onto your computer before you can do that next step. So we'll click on import, and the super raw files, again, they're quite large in size, so it will take a bit of time for everything to get completely loaded. You'll see a progress bar there at the very bottom of the computer screen. Processing here is done automatically, at least in the Connect software. So before, the shot looks like this, and then afterwards with super raw, you can see it's been cleaned up in terms of noise, colors are a little bit more bumped up, and it looks something like this. Actually quite good. But that is pretty much the extent of this Connect software. You won't find additional tools like changing the saturation, exposure, contrast yourself. All of that is done automatically. For the more granular controls, you would have to then process this image using another tool such as Photoshop, Photo Labs. So it is very convenient in the sense that it's done automatically as opposed to true manual control like on the Lite L16 or the Litro, which there isn't even an auto function. At 20 megapixels, even though you can't necessarily blow up billboards, it still is doing a very good job in that you can zoom in and still see plenty of fine details. It's also on a larger display like this that you're able to fully appreciate the quality of the images as opposed to something so small on your smartphone. With that being said, as good as the auto mode is, I would still say they have been a little bit stingy on the functionality of this app. In reality, in a perfect world, I would have liked them to have maybe at least a few more quick options, like fine-tuning the saturation or vibrancy, but again, you can always do that yourself afterwards. So that's more or less it as far as our hands-on review of the DxO ONE, although there's a lot of these quote-unquote smart accessories, connected accessories for smartphones and iPhones. I think this stands out as being just one of the most clever as well as surprisingly functional ones that were released. The actual quality of the images are truly very good, even to this day. And so if you want just a small camera, even using it as a tiny point and shoot, this can still be a pretty fun camera to play around with. And again, out of the quirky ones, perhaps the one that's the most practical and the one that I personally would reach for if actually using on a day-to-day. You can check out more details in the links down below if interested, but for now that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That's been the DxO ONE Revisited.